Today's podcast has been sponsored by Apricity. If you're trying to conceive, imagine a world where fertility care is free of stigma, full of support and tailored just for you. With Apricity Fertility, that world is closer than you think. Apricity's virtual fertility clinic makes care accessible and personal. From at-home diagnostic testing to virtual consultations and expert treatment like IVF and egg freezing, they're redefining fertility care. Plus, their success rates surpass the UK national average, giving you even more hope on your journey. With the Apricity app and your own personal advisor, you're supported every step of the way, 7 days a week. Apricity understand that building a family shouldn't mean putting your life on hold. Visit www.apricityfertility.com today. Apricity, fertility care for the modern woman. Hello and huge welcome back to Outspoken by Femme Health. We have a very, very exciting guest with us today. We have the incredible Leila from MyOva. Huge welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Actually, really good timing that we had you scheduled in to join us today because you are the first brand to sell out on Femme Health.
That is very exciting. Oh, I'm so glad that your customers are loving our preconception supplement.
I know, they really are. And then they're now moving over to Metabolism. So yeah, we're 6 weeks old just last Friday. So not even 2 months. So for us personally to have a line sell out is just so exciting for us internally. So huge thank you for letting us start your products.
Amazing news.
And I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit more today about your own personal PCOS journey and what led you to launch MyOva.
Yeah, well, it kind of was twofold, my journey to sort of launching MyOva. I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was 19 and I had never heard of it before. The first time I heard about PCOS was when I sat in a doctor's office. And the reason I went to the doctors was because I was having periods every 2 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. It was going on for ages and I didn't know what was wrong. So I went to the doctors, they gave me the blood tests, a scan of my ovaries, and I went back and got my results. And the doctor said to me, you're going to find it difficult to have a baby. You have PCOS. And literally that was it. And I remember leaving the doctor's office in tears because even though I wasn't planning on having any children at 19, you kind of assume as a woman, as a girl, that that's your life path. And I remember going back to my boyfriend at the time in tears, and there was just no aftercare at all, nothing. So, kind of fast forward sort of 15 years or so when I was actually ready to start a family, I kind of had this thought in the back of my head, you're going to find it difficult to have a baby. And we did, we tried for 5 years and I had 6 miscarriages. And they were either very early miscarriages at sort of 6 weeks up until my 4th miscarriage or pregnancy loss that was around 18 and a half weeks, which was devastating because, you actually have to give birth to the baby. Sorry, trigger alert. It's a really, really awful experience that I hope nobody else has to, like women don't have to go through. It's hideous.
Well, the statistics are quite high as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I thought that after your 12-week scan, you were kind of plain sailing and everything was fine. But actually, I can't remember exactly what the statistics are, but there's actually quite a big number of pregnancy losses between kind of 16 and 20 weeks for various reasons. And for me, it was the amniotic sac split. So there was no fluid around the baby. So basically they said, look, you can continue with the pregnancy, but we don't think that there'll be much of a chance that the baby will make it after it's born. So it's up to you whether you want to carry on the pregnancy or terminate. And we just made the really difficult decision to terminate the pregnancy. So that was probably about 3 years in of our fertility journey. So it was really hard. And I had all the tests from the NHS and they just couldn't find anything wrong with me. Nothing. Everything was fine. And I know it sounds crazy, but I kind of wish there was something wrong, because I thought if there's something wrong, they can fix it.
Did they not link it to the PCOS at all?
They didn't link it to PCOS because I was falling pregnant. However, I became convinced that it was my egg quality, because PCOS, one of the many symptoms of PCOS is poor egg quality. So I was thinking, it's my eggs. They're not good quality enough. The embryos aren't good quality enough. And that's why I'm miscarrying. And then that's where all of the research came in. I went full in on the research, because I just thought, if the NHS can't help me, if I keep doing more of what I'm doing, I'm just going to get the same results. So that's when I came across MyOva, and it's an incredible ingredient. So it used to be thought of as a B-type vitamin, but actually we do make it naturally in our bodies. We all make it naturally in our bodies, but women with PCOS don't make as much. So hence why we need to supplement. So not only does it help with egg quality, it can also help with the other pain points of PCOS. So, you know, acne and oily skin, the weight gain, the excess hair on the face and body, hair loss.
Did you have
it can
all
help.
those symptoms, or did you just?
No, I didn't. I just had the missed periods, or the irregular periods. But PCOS affects 1 in 10 women worldwide, but not every woman has every symptom.
Right, okay.
So that's why it's so difficult to diagnose. And a lot of the time, if you don't go to a doctor that specifically is trained in women's health, they may also miss it, which means that you go round in circles for years, which happens to a lot of our customers actually, that they go to the doctors thinking they're going to get a solution, get turned away. I mean, anecdotally, someone very close to me who was 21 went to the doctors, hadn't had a period for 6 months, and the doctor said, "You're too young to have PCOS," which is just absolute rubbish. So, you know, I said, no, you need to go back. You need to go back and see a doctor who specialises in women's health. Turns out she has PCOS, and she actually took MyOva for under 2 months, and her period came back. So, you know, the benefits of MyOva were incredible. And I just thought, I'm really into health and fitness and supplementation, and I hadn't heard about it. So there must have been thousands of other women who hadn't heard about it either. And at the time, the only supplement of MyOva I could find was in a sachet that you had to put in water. And I just kept forgetting to take it. And, you know, having a full glass of water before you go to bed. I don't know about you, but I'll be up, about 10 times in the night. So I was like, why does no one do this in a tablet? And then that's kind of where the idea came from. And it sparked from there. But, it's just been crazy since. And we launched, and, you know, we bought 1,000 units or something. And we sold out in like 3 months. Oh my gosh. You know, which is crazy for a brand new brand that nobody have ever heard of. And it's really grown from there. And I've just realised since then how many women are struggling, and how many women are embarrassed of their PCOS, don't have anyone to talk to, don't have anyone to turn to, think their only option is kind of pharmaceutical drugs, you know, which can cause, I think metformin is what doctor would traditionally give you for PCOS, which obviously works well for lots of women, but for some women it can cause vomiting, gastro problems, diarrhea, you know, whereas MyOva has little to no side effects, and it's natural. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me.
But the NHS would never recommend it?
No, it's not under their NICE guidelines. So, and a lot of doctors have never heard of it. You know, we do have a healthcare professional section on our website. So if you do need to go to the doctors and need some kind of backup, we've got an amazing document written by dietitians that shows all of the clinical studies behind MyOva that you can take to your doctor and say, look, yes, it works. It really works. But yeah, a lot of them haven't even heard of it. But I think the thing is with the NHS, and of course they're amazing and do some wonderful work, but a lot of it is treating the symptoms rather than actually dealing with the problem. And when it comes to PCOS, it's really important that you have a healthy diet, and you avoid sugar and glucose spikes, because raised insulin is actually causes high testosterone levels, which then causes in the ovaries, which then causes the infertility. So it's almost like you have to kind of rewind your way back to what's causing it in the first place. And you can't cure PCOS, but you can manage your symptoms effectively with diet and supplementation. So it's hard. And I think for a lot of women with PCOS, you have raised insulin levels. So all you want is chocolate. And then you eat the chocolate, have a glucose spike, then 2 hours later crash. And you just need more chocolate, you need more sugar to sustain it. And it's really difficult to explain to people who don't have those kind of spikes how it feels to try and stop yourself having sugar. It's like your body is craving it. So it's really hard to reverse that. And you have to be, I've just gone through it over Christmas. I've got so much chocolate for Christmas. I think we all do this where we think, I'll just eat it and then it's not in the house and then it won't be there to eat. But then of course I was completely addicted to sugar and it's taken me about a month to wean myself off it. It's really hard. So I feel for a lot of women. Yeah.
Do you think, and I'm only just thinking after what you're saying then, so a lot of people have unexplained reasons of fertility after having IVF. Is this the problem sometimes because we're not sort of investigating the root cause and maybe they had PCOS and it's never been managed and they go straight to clinic?
Yeah, well, I think there's a stat that says about 70% of women don't know they have PCOS. But I think what you just said can go back to any chronic health issue. You just have to go back to the cause, and it's usually diet, to be honest with you. I mean, glucose and insulin spikes are responsible for so many chronic health issues, from arthritis to metabolic syndrome to diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And that's the thing also with PCOS that a lot of women don't realise. That's why it's really important to get it diagnosed early, is because if it's left unchecked and you don't take any health precautions to managing it, it can lead to things like metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes because of the raised insulin levels. So, I think, we're not taught about it in school, and I bang on about this because 1 in 10 women suffer from it. So why don't we know about these women's health issues earlier, when we're kind of 12, 13, 14? So we're better prepared to spot it early because we know our bodies better than anybody else. Like as women, we're very in tune with our bodies, aren't we? So we're able to spot it, get it diagnosed sooner. Just think how much money the NHS would save. I mean, diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, is the biggest kind of killer of, people in the NHS. So, it's, I think we just need to be more mindful about treating the cause rather than the actual symptoms.
And the education, you're absolutely right. And we bang on about this all the time in our personal experiences from school. And I was actually speaking to somebody the other day that said, do you remember at school you put a condom on a banana? And I was like,
oh yeah.
That. And he was like, well, did anybody show you a vagina and explain to you? And I was like, no, never. Did anybody show you how to learn how to insert a tampon? No, they didn't. And also, like, understanding your cycle, I remember very vividly having my first period, my mum saying, here's your sanitary products. I was marched to the doctors, I was put on a pill, I was told don't get pregnant, and that was really it. And then fast forward 15 years and you want to have a baby, you don't know anything about your cycle.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this earlier, and I think I really want to talk about this because it makes me so mad. And there's a whole generation, well, all of us really, are completely ignorant to how our bodies work. I remember having a chat with a friend saying that, because this is after I was trying to conceive and I knew everything about conceiving. But I said, said to her, there's only about 5 days in your cycle you can get pregnant. She said, no. I said, no, honestly, there's only 5 days. But it's true. And my friend who was in her 30s had no idea. And we grow up thinking that we can get pregnant like on our period. I mean, all these things are possible. It's, you can't kind of rule out 100% you're never going to get pregnant on your period. But, the chances are very slim. So the fact that they teach us so much how not to get pregnant, but then they don't teach us how to get pregnant. And it would help so much if we knew that there's only 5 day period or, in your cycle when you can get pregnant. That would save a lot of stress about worrying about pregnancy, earlier on in your 20s or when you're not trying to conceive. it's very strange. And, I don't know if you've seen, but the women's health strategy that was launched last year, it's headed up by Dame Leslie Regan, who is actually a miscarriage specialist and consultant. And they've put all these plans in place to improve women's health across the board. So in work, at school, within the NHS, in hospitals. And one of the initiatives that I really loved, and I was thinking, are they going to do it? But they have, is introducing women's health hubs.
Yes.
So they started one, I think it was in Manchester or Liverpool, they kind of tested one out, and it looks like they're going to start rolling them out across the country. And I love this idea because it's women's health experts all in one place. So you go in there with a gynecological issue, speak to the doctor or the triage or whatever, and they're like, no problem, we'll send you to the gynecologist. No problem, we'll send you for an ovary scan. And you can do it all in one place, and there's no files getting lost or having to wait 8 weeks before your next appointment and, that person can't help, and now you've got to wait another 2 months or 6 months to go and get another appointment somewhere else. So I really love that idea. So I think that things are definitely improving, and I'm really glad women's health is on the agenda.
For sure. And you know what, we're staying quite close to this. I think there's around 25 million that's been allocated. Now, I'm very keen to see how it progresses over the next 12 months, to be honest, because when we spoke to Staffordshire just before Christmas, a lot of the money hadn't been decided yet, but they said they predicted it was going into contraception. And that really deflated me a little bit. I feel like all we talk about is preventative measures towards pregnancy. And I do think we need to flip that a little bit and do have some support on the other side, because like I say, from a teenager, you're told on how not to get pregnant. And I'm hoping that there'll be some exciting education coming out on how to get pregnant.
Yeah, well, I think they need to, and it's also including girls and boys in this conversation as well, I think, because that's the thing. These common women's health issues like the PCOS, endometriosis, endometriosis can be really devastating to women and affect their quality of life, as can PCOS. But if you can educate boys who are then going to turn into husbands, boyfriends, co-workers, your boss, then there'll be a greater understanding about what women have to go through, but also, postpartum depression, all these other things that women have to go through, pregnancy, all these things, menopause, the list goes on and on.
You've hit the nail on the head with some personal conversations I've actually been having with my sisters on and off for the last year about men understanding women in general and our hormones, and especially when it comes to sex. We often have this conversation with my sisters, like, we as women go through a phase throughout the month, have hormones, and sometimes they don't understand, they get up every day, 24-hour cycle, ready to hit the road again. We go through a 28-day cycle, and it is so different. And we often talk about men's education towards women's health and understanding. So like I say, they're going to become partners, husbands, fathers. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if I should say this on a podcast, but I'm starting at home. I'm starting with my 2 boys. I'm calling everything by their I can't say it, anatomical name. My vagina is my vagina, although to my 4-year-old it's my vagina, because he can't say V, which is quite funny. But, they see tampons and I explain what a tampon is. I just really want them to, I'm doing it now, they're 4 and 6, just, age appropriately. So they're not going, sniggering when the word vagina comes on. I haven't got around to the other parts of the anatomy, but I really just don't want them to be embarrassed. And I want them to be educated and aware, so they are decent men who understand women, because, I don't have girls, so that I feel it's my moral responsibility to bring up, educated men on women's health, which they will be.
Incredible to hear. I have a little girl, but I do the same with her. So she's always following me around the house. She's 5, and she's always in the bathroom with me. I'm like, why are you always in here? And then she's like, what's that, mummy? I'm like, that's a lady pad. Why are you bleeding? And I always say it because I feel like we grow up a lot with a lot of shame, hiding tampons. And also, like, when my daughter's in the bath and she's like exploring her own body, you'd be like, what are you doing? And it's like, why are we doing that? She's trying to explore her own body, she's just curious.
Yeah.
And I think being more open is definitely, going to help the next generation as well. And we're only getting better. We are getting better, which I think is great.
I think we are, but you have to think, going back a couple of generations, so even going back one generation to my mum's generation, it's so different. It's so different. Women have got so much more freedom now. And I know that we need more, we deserve more. But, back in the day, my mum couldn't even get a mortgage in her own name. I mean, things have changed so much, and the attitude towards sex has changed, to our own bodies. And, I think things are changing quite quickly, but it's just what you're comfortable with. And like you were saying with your daughter, I think it's really important that we have an open dialogue with them, and we don't make them feel shame about exploring their own bodies and things like that. But yeah, it's something you have to think about, actually. You have to kind of decide what your take is on it and how you're going to deal with it. But I try to kind of read up as much as I can, and I don't know, just do what feels right, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the most powerful thing we've got now, is we've got more access, haven't we, to education, to the internet, those types of things, those conversations. Whereas when I was growing up, we really just had what your mum told you.
No, exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
We've got the resources to do better, which is great. So just going back to your story then, your personal story. So you went on to have 2 beautiful children.
I did, finally. So that's, it was, I almost gave up. I can remember I think I'd on my 6th miscarriage, and I was just a broken person, it shattered my mental health. I was just a heap on the floor. And I remember my mum just saying, you're going to regret it if you don't keep trying. And in the end, I actually saw a fertility doctor who, because in between all that, we'd spent thousands and thousands on fertility treatment, as in IUI, but they wouldn't give us IUI until we'd had all these other tests. We'd spent thousands and thousands of pounds, didn't work. And in the end, I found this doctor who specialised in recurrent miscarriage, and it isn't approved by the NHS just because they haven't been able to do any studies on it. But the reason why they haven't been able to do any studies on it is because no women over 40 who'd had multiple miscarriages would take a placebo in a blind study. I think that's the reason why they probably haven't done any studies on it. But it's around high natural killer cells. So it's immunology, and it's where your body sees the fetus as a foreign object, so it goes and attacks the pregnancy. So I had all these tests done, and the doctor put me on steroids, very low dose steroids, to lower my immune system so it didn't attack the pregnancy. And I think I got pregnant about the 2nd time of trying, and I had my first child, and then I went back again to have my 2nd child with him, and that was also successful. Wow. So I was very lucky that I found him, and I was very lucky that I didn't give up, because I would have regretted it. Yeah. But, for some people, that's their journey, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And we were talking about this last week, and, me and you have talked about this personally. It's like, not everybody's journey ends with a baby. And I think there is definitely some work still to be done around that, because, you go on successful fertility journey, your end game is you have that baby and you go on to be a parent, but it's life after, and coming to terms with the decision. I've got friends, family that have personally been on that journey, and it's a lonely one, I think.
It's very lonely. I think it's the fertility journey is a lonely one as well. There isn't much support, to be honest with you. There really isn't much support. And the problem is with infertility or recurrent miscarriage, is that generally when you're going through that time, all of your friends are falling pregnant. So it's not even, sometimes it might be your best friend, who the person that you would talk to is now pregnant, and you don't want to see her anymore. And, you know, that can be, I think from the outside in, people can judge you for that. But I would say I know how it feels, and you just have to do what's right for you. You have to protect yourself, because your mental health suffers so badly. You just have to do what you can to preserve your little world, basically. And, you know, I do think if they're real friends, they'll understand, and you will get back there to that place with them eventually. But it's a season of your life, and it's hard sometimes for a lot of people.
Were you open? I know you're very open now, and obviously your products and your brand has helped thousands of women, but whilst you were going through that journey, were you open, or was it something that you...
No, I wasn't at all, actually. I had definitely had depression, and I just withdrew. I just didn't want to see anybody. I just felt like a failure. I felt like nothing in my life was going right. Every time I tried to do something to improve the situation, it just backfired on me. And I lost faith in myself. I lost faith in everything. And even when I started MyOva, it took me a really long time to be able to talk about my story, because it was so raw and so fresh. And the thing is, what I found interesting actually was when I had my first child, I thought that I would be like, I'm back, ta-da, my problems are over, I've had a baby. But no, they weren't. I had the after effect. It was very traumatic, what I went through, some of the things that I went through, and they don't just vanish when you've had a baby. So that was very confusing. And I think people also thought that I would bounce back to being my normal self afterwards. And it took me a really, really long time. And I would say that even after my second child was born, it took about a year or two after that before I felt back to my normal self. It took a long time. So that was an unexpected situation. I didn't expect that to happen.
I suppose it's because you haven't looked past the end goal. You know, the end goal was
No.
to have a baby. So when you have the baby, you've got what you want. But then you don't realise the whole aftermath of that. I had a very traumatic pregnancy, a birth, sorry. I had sepsis, and my daughter had sepsis. And
oh my
I can
goodness.
talk about it now. She's 5, but I didn't talk about it for a good 3 years. I was in intensive care in the hospital for a month. She reacted really quickly to the antibiotics, and only took her about a week to get back to normal. But I went downhill on day 10, and it was a really scary situation. And I still don't think I've dealt with it now, 5 years on, because like you say, you'll think you're fine, you go back to work, you bring your children up, you get on with your life, but it's never gone. You know, it's part of your DNA almost.
Well, I have read about this a little bit, but PTSD after miscarriage or traumatic birth, and I definitely had PTSD after I had that very late loss. For about a year afterwards, if someone said pregnant, or I looked at a pregnant person, or someone said baby, I felt like a sheet of glass had gone through my body. It's like I went cold. And it's only when I went for therapy that the therapist was like, that's PTSD. Yeah. And there is some research actually showing that women who go through traumatic births or miscarriages do suffer from PTSD, but I don't think it's talked about enough.
Aftercare.
And I mean, there's no, and I don't know about you. I don't know if you had any help from the NHS afterwards.
No, I remember going in and having like a really in-depth meeting with the doctors that looked after me. But again, you know, it's very clinical, and sepsis can take 3 to 6 months to recover from. And I was a single mum from 6 weeks old, 2 weeks after coming out of the hospital. So I didn't really have time to heal. And I'd had a C-section, emergency C-section, and then on to a second operation on day 10 to remove more of the infection. And I've never given myself time. I was a single mum till she was 3. I'm very lucky to have a really supportive partner now, and it's only now that I'm ready to start therapy. Like, I feel like I'm in a stable job, you know, she's gone to school, and there was no real aftercare. There was just that one sort of debrief.
Yeah. And I've been reading a lot about how trauma can stay stuck in your body as well. So that's something maybe you should explore and look more into. But yeah, it's really hard. And there just isn't, the thing is, it's the emotional support you need afterwards, isn't it?
It's the emotional support. And I think what I've suffered with really personally is, like you said, when someone mentioned pregnancy, I could not stand anybody coming up towards the due date. I just got really scared that they were going to get ill. And then so many of my friends went on to just have really straightforward births, you know, one day, or some would come out the same day. And I felt a certain way. And I've also felt a certain way about watching close friends and family have two parents and have that sort of yin yang support through the night and day. I never had that. And I also never went on to have another child, probably because of PTSD. So I think, you know, we all have journeys, and whether, you know, it's fertility or, like, you know, I didn't have a fertility issue. Mine was all straight after the birth. Sometimes we do bury it, don't we?
Definitely. I think that's sometimes you have to do that. For you, for example, you couldn't deal with it. You needed to look after your daughter and make sure that you got better, you know. But I think it does rear its ugly head at some point. So I think you do have to deal with it. You do have to deal with it because it pops up in other ways. I know. I think.
Well, I didn't think this podcast would lead on to pushing me towards therapy, but I definitely need to, and I know it's the top thing on my agenda. You know, any support that women can get, I am an advocate for. And do you know what? It's been so incredible to speak to you more. Obviously, we spoke a few times during onboarding you for Fem Health, but just to hear more about your personal journey and how it could benefit women. Do you have any more exciting plans for MyOva? What's in the pipeline? I know you sold out, so when are we getting more?
Soon. We have a male fertility supplement launching actually in March, which is very exciting. It should be in a few weeks. So we're really looking forward to that because, you know, we want to support women throughout their fertility journey. And obviously, you know, but I know for me, when I was trying for a baby, I made sure that my partner was stocked up on his fertility supplements because they do really make a difference to, like, sperm mobility and sperm health. So we want to make sure that we have the most active ingredients in our male fertility supplement. And then we also will be launching a pregnancy supplement as well for women with PCOS, because there have been studies that show that MyOva can help decrease the chances of gestational diabetes in women with PCOS, which is a real health issue actually just women with PCOS. They do have a higher rate of gestational diabetes in pregnancy. So those are coming up soon, and then we have another product launch, which is a bit top secret. I don't want to mention what it is, but we've got some new products launching in March that are outside of PCOS actually. So it's more for general hormonal health for women, around help with your cycle, around bloating, and around just general hormonal balance. So yeah, we're looking forward to launching those soon.
And the products that you have currently got in stock at the minute, if you haven't been diagnosed with PCOS but you're displaying the symptoms, do you still recommend that they can take them?
You can take them. There won't be any terrible side effects from taking MyOva. There's no known real side effects, and you can take up to 12 milligrams a day. Our supplements are between 2 and 4 milligrams a day. So you can take them, but we would recommend that you get a diagnosis, because you essentially, you know, not just for knowing right now, but you want to know for your health in the future, whether you do have it or not. So just make sure that when you do go for a doctor's appointment, ask for a doctor that specialises in women's health. Otherwise, you may be going around in circles for years. We don't want that.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to hear more about the products, and I'm sure they'll see them on Fem Health soon as they're stocked. And we're lovely to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.